Alrighty, we're going to talk. So you guys have two super awesome body paragraphs. Now we're going to go back and write our introduction above our two super awesome body paragraphs. Okay, so your introduction always starts with a what? Yes, your introduction always starts with a hook. Okay, so don't leave with type. Okay, so you start with a hook. What are some examples of hooks? Yes, you can ask a question. Now, if you ask a question, you are not allowed to say the word you. Okay? So you again, ask a question. What that means is you never say, "Do you understand that violence could be a problem?" No, no, no. Your question as an almost high schooler now needs to not address your reader. It needs to actually cause your reader to think a little deeper. Okay? If that seems hard, then don't fall on the question hook all the time. Try to switch things up. Okay? What are some other ways that we can hook a reader? Yes, another way you can do that is to start with an interesting fact. What's another way? You could use a statistic. I just said a statistic. Okay? You could use a quote. Maybe as you're reading an article, somebody said something awesome about simulated violent games, and you're like, well, that's perfect. You could use a quote to hook your reader. You would say, like, George Washington once said, clearly he didn't. He's not going to talk about simulated games. However, you're going to say who said it and then put the quote there next. Okay. The other thing you could use, although it might not be the great, well, you could probably work it, is if you tell, it's called an anecdote. I'm going to spell this wrong. I did, but that's okay. You could use an anecdote, which is just like a quick, entertaining story. So there are plenty of ways to hook your reader. All right. Then, after you hook your reader, you're going to give your background information. That is, what is the issue that you're arguing about? I know in the past, when you guys did background information, if you were writing an expository essay based on texts that you read, this is where your information on your stories would go. Okay. You're not writing about texts, though. You're writing about an issue. So you're giving background information on an issue. And then the last thing you're going to use is your claim. And this is one statement with your reasons. You guys should know your reasons because you just did two body paragraphs on those. Okay? So we are going to write a sample intro. I'm going to start with an interesting fact. I will start with a fact, and I will say 92% of parents allow their children to play video games at least 1 hour a day. I spelled hour wrong. Whoops. Okay. Now, if I pulled this from a source, first of all, I need to make sure that I put this source where? Yes, I will need to put that source in my works cited page. Okay. So you use your citation machine like I showed you yesterday. All right. There's my interesting hook. Okay. I use a fact and statistic. Now, I'm going to give some background information. And I will say, not all video games are violent. Not all games are video games. And not all games are violent. However, there is an issue that has come up in our society. Okay? And this is where maybe you could ask a question. Should young children be exposed to violence, to simulated violence, simulated or fake violence in games? Some believe that violent games are too intense, and others believe that violent games are even beneficial, right? Okay, so if you see, this is my background information. I'm giving both sides. I'm talking about the issue. I mentioned that it's simulated violence, that it's fake violence, that it's not just video games, that it's all games, okay? I am not giving information on the text yet or on hijinks shootout because that's not what we're debating. We are debating about simulated violence. So I'm giving information on the issue, okay? Now, I'm done with that. What is the next thing or the last thing that I need to do? Yes, we end with a claim, okay? So you do not need to say, I believe. Your claim is what you are claiming. You are writing. You don't need to say that. You just state what you believe. So young children should not be exposed to violent games with simulated violence because these games can teach them poor habits and they are exposed to dangers at too young of an age. What are the two things that are in my claim? So I can clearly see in my claim that one of my body paragraphs is going to be about this. And then my other body paragraph is going to be about this. Okay? So you already have your two body paragraphs. So your claim should be fairly easy to write. The difficult thing or the more tricky thing is to come up with a hook and give that background information today. All right? So we are going to give you about 10, 15 minutes to focus on your intros today. Okay? Let's get going.